and welcome to QPTEA Time. I can't seriously hold my hands like that. I try and see like I'm a serious interviewer, but I can't do it. I'm Rosie and this is Lex. Hi. And you may have seen us before in some of our other interviews. And we are, for the first time, joining forces today to interview Mr. Nukara, Mr. Thompson. I don't know how we're going to...
James.
TJ.
Welcome to QPTEA Time.
Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah. We're really excited to talk to you because I think a lot of people, have seen you around or they've heard of you. And I remember when I first came to town, someone's like, oh, you need to meet James Thompson. Like, he's really interesting. And like, he does that music festival. And I was like, whoa, he must be such a celebrity. And like, I'm really excited to know the man behind that celebrity. We only interview celebrities on this segment.
It's quite exclusive.
Everybody
You're welcome.
I call a celebrity, and I probably shouldn't. But, you were. When I first came to town, it was like, wow, this is this great guy you should meet. And so you kind of have this myth about you, but there's so much more to you than just Nukara and the things that people know about you. Where did you start your life?
Born in Geelong, cat country, and grew up in a little coastal town called Point Lonsdale in Victoria, at the bottom of Port Phillip Bay. Next to the ocean and the bay, beautiful place, but a bit long winter times. So.
Yeah, not like here.
No, that's right.
It's like 25 today or something beautiful.
Yeah. I was born over there a long time ago now.
Yeah, right.
And spent my first 20 odd years there, mostly, and a bit of time in Geelong and Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you always an ocean kid? Like you grew up next to the ocean and now you're in Geraldton?
Yeah, but my parents' families, they were farming families.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, mum and dad's parents, or mum's parents were in the northeastern Victoria, a place called Alexandra, had a sheep farm up there. And dad's mum and dad had a farm on the Bellarine Peninsula, but his dad died when he was 10 years old.
Yeah.
So him and his three older sisters and mother, they ran a dairy farm in Point Lonsdale. And I can remember as a little kid going on grandma's little jinka, which is a horse and cart, delivering, the big cans of milk and stuff around the place.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Was there ever any prospect that you would become a farmer?
No, I don't think so. The only prospect, like Dad was a house remover, moved trains and planes, automobiles, everything.
Yeah.
And also re-stumped houses and that. And, I helped him out since I was a little kid. And, I didn't like doing that job. It was a real heavy, arduous job sort of thing. And, I wanted to be a cabinet maker or a builder.
Yeah, right.
But I never, got an apprenticeship when I was finishing school. So, tried all sorts of things and ended up running my own gardening business in Point Lonsdale for a number of years.
How did you even make that transition of time on the farm, then time and all of these different handy skills, and then just thinking, you know what, I'm going to get into gardening?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was unemployed quite a bit, but also done a bit of work and helped out friends who were doing similar things. And then they gave up their businesses and I just continued on and, loved doing that job, helping all these retired people out and rentals and stuff like that. And Point Lonsdale, Queenscliff's pretty small sort of community and great place to run a business like that. I think I just enjoyed that sort of work, working in gardens and outdoors, and also was a photographer as well, just a hobby photographer, and that allowed me to do that as well.
As a young person, were you quite introverted or, were you really kind of searching for this wider community of maybe arts or other things that were out there? Like what were you like kind of growing up?
Good question. No, I always, loved being around people and stuff, especially my close-knit friends and stuff like that. We're very adventurous, doing all sorts of things, riding motorbikes up in the dunes and stuff, and, bush buggies. We drove a bush buggy when we were 15 or 16, my friend Horry and myself. He bought this dune buggy in Geelong, which is 30 k's away, and we drove it with no breaks all the way to Point Lonsdale over 2 days.
I was just waiting for that because when I asked what kind of kid you were, you had a little smirk. I was like, oh, you were naughty.
He was naughty. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love testing limits and stuff. And
Pushing boundaries.
yeah.
Were you riding on the road? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 We had to go on some roads. There's a railway line, an old railway, disused railway line down the Bellarine Peninsula, which we tried to go down most of it. But we had to go down roads. We had to go down a highway in between, in the medium strip.
Hello.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's all good.
But we just got out of the suburbs and we're cruising along. And next thing we saw this police car pulling a house, this rural house. And thought, oh, shit. We jumped out and walked away from it and waited for him to go. And then he went the other way, luckily, and we continued on.
There's like nothing to see, it's all good.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like the feeling of thinking you've been found out and then not being found out and being like, we got away with it.
Yeah.
Don't look back. Do not make eye contact.
You're like, guilty.
I have that feeling every time I drive past a cop, I'm like, don't look at me. Don't make eye contact.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
had a bit of a fun, adventurous childhood.
Where I grew up, Point Lonsdale, Queenscliff, there's a lot of bush and stuff like coastal bush areas and stuff like that. And then there's salt lakes where everyone used to take, the $50 bombs and go and do doughies around the salt lakes and stuff like that. And yeah, and we rode bikes, push bikes in the bush, like BMXs and stuff like that. And yeah, lots of diving and surfing and yeah, beautiful place to grow up. I was so lucky to be
Idyllic, that's what it sounds
Yeah.
like.
So did you kind of have that awareness of your natural surroundings? Were you starting to get interested or aware about the environment around you, or was that just kind of like a non-event?
No, yeah, I really I loved where I lived there. I used to, we grew up across the road from, like the what would you call it? It's like a reserve. There's a big sort of coastal dune full of bush and stuff like that, and then there's the bay sort of thing. So that was my playground.
Yeah.
And I hung out with a guy across the road. He was a few years older than me, into motorbikes and stuff. He taught me how to ride a mini bike through the bushes and stuff, and build cubbies and smoke ciggies and stuff like that in grade 6.
Whoa.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So did you have much time for school there? You were so busy smoking ciggies.
Oh,
in the bush
yeah.
and
No,
grade
I love primary school. Really love primary school.
Yeah.
Because primary school was just across the road as well,
Yeah,
and
right.
surrounded by that bush area. And, we'd all go and play in the bushes and stuff and
Such a
kiss
cool
Chasey
idea.
and stuff.
six.
And,
Oh, righto.
yeah.
And then what about moving into high school or TAFE or anything? Did you?
Well, yeah, I had a
Did you
choice
study?
of going to the local high school in Queenscliff, right next door, or going to the tech school in Geelong, which was about a 40-minute bus ride. I knew a few people older than me that went to tech, and I thought, yeah, that's what I want. I like doing that building stuff and whatever. So I ended up going there, but it was such a change from primary school. East Tech was a pretty rough sort of school, and got into trouble in Year 7 for one of these older students. He dobbed on me saying I had ciggies in my locker because I wouldn't give him one before school. Yeah. So I had to go get the lash. Got the lash a few times from the vice principal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, they were good growing up things, I reckon.
Do you think, did that sort of put you in when you were, this kid getting in trouble, and that's quite young to be, getting in trouble for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What, did you sort of start to see yourself as this kind of rebel or a naughty kid, or was it just like you had your life outside of that and it was just something that happened at school?
Yeah, it was pretty much what happened at school, I think, because most kids were like that there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of orphan kids that attended that school, and they were pretty rough sort of kids.
Yeah, because I'm really interested in that, how people, think, if we sort of, you see a lot of chats in things like, Neighbourhood Watch and that about who criminals are and who these naughty kids are. And I often want to know how the kids see themselves. Does a kid ever see themselves as this Year 7 getting in trouble for smoking ciggies and, and they're, I'm now a naughty kid,
Yeah, I often see those posts on Neighbourhood Watch and stuff, and I think back to when I was young and heaps of other kids, you'd get caught and you'd get a good stern warning, which I did. I got caught nicking a cigarette lighter from Coles in Geelong in Year 7.
The big time.
Yeah, I walked out the door. It was a dare, with a bunch of kids. We went in there and who
I can't believe you got caught.
Yeah, and walked out the door and the in-store security come and tapped me on the shoulder. Can you come upstairs, please? And then they got the policeman to come in and had to go to the police station, and Mum had to come and pick me up. And well, that policeman, he ended up being a family friend after that, because he had a mutual interest of collecting World War II Jeeps and trucks and that, like my parents did. So.
Yeah. And when you were, getting into a little bit of mischief here and there, what were your parents' reactions? Like, were they just really cool about it, or were they like, James?
Oh, there was times, I think, when I think back, they were pretty angry sort of thing. There was a few things. But then there was one incident, I think I started a fire in there's a big block of units being built next door, and I was in I used to always go exploring and stuff, and I found some matches in there and threw a match in a box, and it, started to smoulder sort of thing.
James.
Oh, yeah.
So
this is taking a turn.
that's when things got more serious, and then Mum and Dad thought, we've got to do something with James, we've got to, rein him in sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And a family friend, he was head of a sea venturer group, and he suggested I join the group. Okay. I thought,
what's a sea venturer?
It's like you have cubs, then you have scouts that between certain years, and then venturers is like 15 or to 18 or something like that.
Yeah.
But with venturers, you actually, the kids ran the group themselves pretty much. You're given the responsibility to wish what you want for, what you want to do, go on hikes or go sailing and stuff like that. And that was really good. I think that was a really good thing for me in life to be able to do that.
Did you feel like you had connected with something, or it made sense in a way? Did it give you a bit of direction? Like, what was that experience like?
There were some kids that I've known, most of my life who were in it and stuff. And, I loved sailing and stuff. Like, I'd done that in secondary school as an elective on Friday afternoons. And then, we're doing that, going on hikes and, meeting girls. There was...
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't just boys. It was a good mixture, probably 50-50 girls, boys. And that.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then you go and meet other crew on annual camps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a straight sort of thing to do thing, but yeah.
So I want to ask about how, so you've had this really beautiful, idyllic childhood and then, a few little missteps here and there, but you're coming out the other side of it as sort of in your late teens. Is that when you started your gardening business?
Probably, like I finished year 11 after wagging probably half of it. I used to hitchhike. I think
So year 10 and a half is what you said.
Yeah. I just passed year 11 at the end of the year.
Yeah. Nicely. See you. It's good knowing you.
But there was just subjects I wasn't interested in, or it was probably more the teachers actually that I just, I thought they were just, didn't have the love for the subject they were teaching the kids, and I thought, stuff it. In PE and stuff, you do an afternoon PE, and I thought, nah, not into this sort of thing. And hitchhike home, 30 Ks, go back home, go surfing or diving and stuff like that. Me and a mate used to do that.
So you're the kind of person who you do things because of other people. I think that's kind of a theme that's emerging already, that, you didn't like a subject at school because the teacher, you didn't connect with that teacher and their passion for it. And, we'll talk about this a bit more, but it sort of seems that this is a bit of a theme in your life, that you connect to things through the people that you work with. Like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sort of seems like, you're such a community-minded person. And that's Lex and I were talking about that before, that, straight out of school, you're just this really community-minded person, and you care a lot about the people around you.
I think that comes from where I grew up in Point Lonsdale, small community town. Everyone sort of knew each other. That changed as we got older, as the Melbourne people would come and buy up all the houses, the cheap houses, and turn them into holiday houses. And so you know.
Those damn city folks.
Yeah. So half the town was empty most of the year, except for school holidays and stuff like that. Yeah.
Changes a town, doesn't it?
Yeah, it changed. Yeah, and we couldn't afford to rent cheap houses and that. That's how probably a lot of us ended up moving to other places because we couldn't afford to live there.
I kind of wanted to touch on that. Like, was that kind of the point where you were like, it's time to get out, or time to search around for something more?
Oh, geez. Well, I ran my gardening business until probably 23 or 4. And I was having a few problems with my back, and the doctor said, James, you've got to do something different, mate. You know, eventually you're going to end up in a wheelchair or something. That was like, whoa, shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I probably wasn't that bad, but my doctor was Dr. Jeff. He was a classic doctor, young doctor, pretty wild sort of dude. He's the doctor for the Geelong Cats, been the last couple of decades now.
Wow.
Yeah, okay.
But,
sorry, just let a name drop. Oh, just Dr. Jeff, who told me that you're going to end up in a wheelchair. Also happens to
Celebrity.
be the doctor. Yeah, celebrity. What?
Yeah,
Wow.
and
Can we get some season tickets, or is that something you can?
Yeah.
Be like, hey, Dr. Jeff. Just, no, okay.
Not ill, but
Oh, I haven't seen him for a long time. I haven't needed him for a long time. Yeah. Where was I again?
Where were we?
so
Dr.
you were
Jeff.
seeing Dr. Jeff. He's kind of told you. It's
and a
time.
friend of mine, like I was getting right into photography in my, probably late teens, early 20s, selling at markets and putting in exhibitions and competitions and stuff. And another friend of mine, Anna Reynolds, she done this 2-year course, a Melbourne photography course, and for a couple of years she said, James, you've got to do this course, And I thought, oh, geez, moving to Melbourne and, studying and living on Austudy, I can't do that. But that was always in my head. And then, I applied for this course after selling my gardening business and, got in. And that was one of the best 2 years of my life, I reckon. Just given all this film and stuff and just shoot as much as you like and learning off all these amazing photographers. It was just a photography college.
So awesome. You
Oh,
were just
yeah.
like, I'm inspired. Like, what was the vibe like?
And
Melbourne back then?
oh, well, all the students were from like people, year 12s right through to people in their 40s and stuff. So everyone had a passion for photography and stuff. And some didn't. Some of the year 12s were just there, to do it sort of thing. Yeah.
And this is you, this young entrepreneur who sold his gardening business and moved to the big smoke to do photography.
Yeah, Melbourne was great then. Me and my mates used to go to Melbourne all the time, just drive up on a Friday night, go see gigs and drive back in the early hours of the morning and
So cool.
sitting on 160 Ks down the Melbourne Road. And,
Wow.
having fun. Yeah.
So we touched on this because music sort of starts to come up sort of around this time that you're going to all these gigs. You mentioned to us before that you used to organise house parties. Was that back in Point Lonsdale?
That was in Point Lonsdale, yeah.
So
that
you
was
sort of have this
probably-
event, music, creative industries,
Flair.
things. It starts really young with you, hey? Like you can
Yeah,
see
well,
it.
I was just thinking the other day, for our small population of that town, there's been some amazing people that have come out of there. My friend Hugo, who I met in a pram, or before he was born apparently, he ran the Queenscliff Music Festival for 10 plus years. Jenny Davidson, or Moon, she ran it for a year before that. We're all good friends together. Matthew High, he's been running Golden Plains and Meredith Music Festival for a long time now. And, yeah,
Look at me just dropping all these names. Like, Geelong Cats. Like,
Look, it's not a big deal.
Well,
All
probably-
of my friends organise festivals, so I'm just going to drop that.
yeah, probably a few viewers like to know, who's behind these things.
Yeah,
Those
we'd love it.
amazing.
Yeah.
But growing up in that small town, you go to the pub on a Friday and Saturday night. After the pub, you go to the pizza shop behind, and then go to a party in someone's house after that. And that sort of inspired me. And then later on, we thought, all right, let's organise a party. And we'd done one in my flat, little 2-bedroom flat, amongst a group of 3 2-bedroom flats called the Kennels. And me and my mate Hugo and Horry and Folky, I think it was, we loaded up my Holden 1-tonner ute full of cartons of beer.
Yeah.
It worked out, I think they cost less than $1 each a can or something like that back then. So we sold them for $2.
Cool. I'm like I said,
Business.
entrepreneur.
Yes, exactly.
And it was a huge party. It was 250, 300 people there in this tiny
We
little,
just crammed.
like this area like this.
I
Yeah.
want to go to that party.
That's just
And
reminiscent of
amazing.
great
The cops,
house parties.
the cops come and gave us a warning to shut it down, and it was impossible to shut down.
We're just like, mate, I will give you a discount on my beers. $1 for you, special price.
It was donations for the beers.
Yeah, right. Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they come again and gave us a fine. So one of my mates, I think it was Ricky Moore, he went around with a hat, and we ended up
pay for the fine.
we ended up making $50 more than the fine was, and kept the party going until about 2 a.m. or something.
Oh,
like
man. All right, well, we all know what we're doing once isolation ends. James is organising a big party for 500.
With original music.
Oh,
or-
my gosh. Yeah. Well, you seem to have this great capacity for organising things. And, you know, being in a place where there are really creative people, like Melbourne must have been, like, just, you know, food of the gods for you.
that. Oh, Melbourne in the 80s and 90s was going off, you know.
Yeah.
And Geelong, that's where I used to hang out a lot, the Barwon Club and stuff. Lots of grunge and punk bands and stuff,
Yeah.
which friends were in. And, we just ended up... And Hugo, he was a DJ for PBSM, Now Dig This show he used to done. So we used to go to all these big blues gigs and that in Melbourne, and,
Oh, it's just the dream.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
it's-
that
I'm
line.
like, wow, it's so rich. And I think the crazy thing is listening to all of this, I'm like, whoa, you were really in the hub when it was buzzing with music, events, all of this opportunity. So I guess the obvious question is, when did you make the move to WA? And like,
Why did you leave that cool place?
Yeah, well, I'd done my 2 years photography, moved back to Pine Lonsdale. I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer because my love was like landscape,
Yeah.
seascape photography and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, it was impossible. No one employs a photographer sort of thing in those days. So I thought, and I was in my mid-20s, broke as, I'd been living on a study. Like when I budgeted my rent, my food, I'd have about $20 per week left over. So that was great in Melbourne. Gigs were $2 or mostly free.
So-
Go buy one stubby and sit there and watch some amazing music.
Look at dinner.
But I returned to Lonsdale, and I was there for a few months and thought, no, I'm broke. I'm getting old.
I've hit 21 and I am
I've got to go catch up somehow. Yeah. So I thought, I'd heard of Kalgoorlie, a few friends had worked there.
Kalgoorlie.
Whoa, okay, we
Yeah.
need to just backtrack a bit. I'm sorry, it's like I've heard of Kalgoorlie. Like people have heard of, like Brisbane, or people have heard of, even Broome, but like Kalgoorlie?
Yeah, a few friends
I love
that-
Kalgoorlie, but
Kalgoorlie was the place to go in Australia to go and cash up.
oh right,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, it all becomes clear now.
Yeah, I thought you
Yeah.
were talking about the arts. I was like, wow, progressive in the 90s.
But I didn't do
Kalgoorlie's
my
amazing.
research too well.
Yeah, well, like,
I rocked up there, didn't have a trade. It was in a bit of a downturn in the mining industry, but I got a few jobs there, and it was pretty lonely sort of place to live actually, Kalgoorlie, I thought. But I used to go out on weekends and explore all the old gold mining towns and stuff.
great, isn't it?
Did it
Yeah,
make you kind of appreciate the bush a
yeah.
bit more? Or?
Well, always appreciate the bush. Used to always go camping with mates back. We had the yachtways in our backyard and stuff like that, rainforests and stuff.
So cool.
Yeah.
It's funny, like I often like to see how paths could have crossed with people that I meet, before we actually met and got to know each other. And I'm sure that, people watching this, whether they're from Kalgoorlie or the region or Geraldton, they were probably in Kalgoorlie. At some point I was in Kalgoorlie in the 90s. And, don't you sort of wonder who you might have walked past and seen in those places? Because regional WA is like that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, get ready for another name drop. When I was in Kalgoorlie,
Okay, then.
got to Kalgoorlie, and I was in love with public radio when I lived over east, and
A very
and I
common
got
love, yeah.
got
I
to
love-
Kalgoorlie, and the best thing you could listen to was Triple J, and pretty much hated Triple J when I lived in Melbourne,
Were you too cool?
because community radio is brought to you by presenters who do say a 1 or 2 hour show. who loved that type of music, you know, whether it's blues, punk, whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're just so easy to listen to and learn. And they're the ones that play the music before Triple J gets it, sort of thing. And then makes it. Yeah, they unearth it, So yeah, I was starved for music living in Kalgoorlie, and every now and then you get a few bands come and play in the pubs there. And one trio that used to come there, a couple of girls and a guy, they were called the Waifs. And
Here we go.
yeah, and
a big
it was
deal.
amazing. They'd come through every couple of months or so, and they'd play at the Kalgoorlie Hotel, I think it was, up on the deck. There was no one there, you know. It might be 5 of us sometimes, or I might be the only one. And so I struck up a friendship with them. And one of their last gigs there, just before I left, they said, "Oh, you know, we're leaving WA, we're moving to Melbourne." I go, "Oh, hang on, here's some phone numbers." Hugo was one of them, and a few other crew. And they ended up hooking up with some good crew in Melbourne, and which helped them.
Tap into it.
you know,
The rest is very well
established in
documented
Melbourne.
history.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. They have a connection here, do they? Or is it just
The girls apparently lived here for a little bit.
Yeah,
in
cool.
Beresford, in Henry Street, I think.
Oh,
It could have been.
in that old wooden house.
I think so.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
See, this is regional WA. There's always like
This is what my neighbour Alan tells me, that they lived there. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, you know, they always mention their shows here. You know, we played here years ago, and someone broke into our camper van and stole our underwear and stuff like that.
Classic Jerry.
Yeah, right.
Underwear is, prized commodity.
But yeah, then the next time I saw them, they were on tour with Weddings, Parties, Anything when they were in their sort of peak, and they were supporting them.
And they were like, "Sorry, James, who?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oh, that's a big show.
No, we've connected really well.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
That's
So,
so cool.
so you ended up in Kalgoorlie, and you're in it's in a bit of a slump, and sort of things aren't going great. What were you thinking? Like, I'm just going to sweat it out, or what? How did you get out of that?
I was still broke. Paying shitloads of money for a house rent and
That
stuff.
sounds like
and,
Kalgoorlie.
yeah, and another mate who was in the year above me in photography school, he was living there with his girlfriend. He was having a hard time, and he was a bit of a alkie, I think. And we used to go out to the pubs and stuff. And another friend he studied with, the year above me, Jane, she was travelling around Australia in a combi, and she come and caught up with us and stayed for a couple of months. And then she said, "Come on, James, let's go to Broome and get work up there." And I'm like, "Yes,
I'm out of here.
get out of
Yeah,
here!"
place people
Yeah,
out of.
I'd managed to save a bit of money by that
Yeah,
stage.
wow.
Yeah, so we took 2 weeks to. We left Kalgoorlie, went up to Kukini, Niagara Dam, hung out there just to sort of de-stress.
Fresh.
Yeah.
And
I went on my year 7 camp at Kukini.
oh wow,
Yeah.
There's another local connection.
Yeah, we stayed in the pub because that's what year 7s do. They stay in an old pub.
yeah, and I can't remember the people that run the Kukini pub. They're still there now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
They got a horse that hangs out the front. It's very famous. Apparently.
Yeah, and they had floods there many years ago. She showed me they've got this big scorpion, which must be, about that long, that once the water had gone out, dropped, it was in the pub. Crazy.
Anyway, so let's
Yeah,
go past
anyway.
Kukini. Kukini, Niagara Dam, and then...
Oh, what's that? Then we arrived in Geraldton in October 97, I think. And it was... it was Sunshine Festival time.
Oh,
And we arrived, and there was like this Mexican, I think, or some fiesta down Marine Terrace, where Topolini's and Fleur and stuff like that is these days. And this is pretty good fun. Yeah. And then on the Saturday night down at Pages Beach, they had all these huge big puppets and a string quartet playing and stuff. And
you're like, have I just returned to Melbourne?
Well,
yeah.
this is a gem.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
And that
Thanks so
was-
much.
And that was presented by the Arts Council, which is Kath Wielden, Lara and a few others back then. yeah, but I didn't really get to know them until later years, sort of thing, because we'll just
Passing
coming
through.
to stock up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we camped at Drummond's Cove on our final night. Sitting on the beach, this guy brings up a fresh tailor he'd caught and said, "Here you go, guys." And so we lit a fire and cooked it. And we whizzed into town the next day to stock up with groceries and stuff in Jane's Combi, and it broke down in town. It was like, oh, shit.
Well,
Yeah.
would you
Funny.
just think like that?
And I've heard this story so many
Yes.
times
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Geraldton especially, because combis don't like heat. You know, they're an air-cooled motor and stuff,
Yeah.
and they tend to blow valves and stuff and break down in Geraldton.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a story. Someone posted on one of those Geraldton pages recently that they got stuck here because of the virus, and they've actually decided to stay.
I saw that. They bought a house.
Yeah, they bought a house.
Yeah.
And I think this is like a classic story. It's like I tried to leave, but I couldn't, and so
And now I love
now I'm
it.
here and making it a better place.
You know,
love it.
when we went into lockdown, you know, I was going down to the beach and stuff, and I'm thinking, oh, where else would you want to be? It is just stunning here this time.
Yeah.
You know, we're called the windiest city on earth pretty much, but it's only for probably over 3-4 month period where you
Yeah.
get a week or a few days real wind, and then it drops off a bit. And
Yeah, and it's
not
paradise at
windy
the
every-
moment, right?
Yeah,
This
Oh,
time of
autumn,
year.
yeah.
beautiful.
Autumn's the best time.
So good.
So yeah, I was hitching out of town to get my car up at Drummond's Cove. I was out the front of Northgate, and there's this big old orange, beautiful old Fairlane, and he's tooted his horn. He's pulling out beside Henry Jacks there, and just before that, I'd found this quite an expensive snorkel that you use for diving and stuff, and had that in my hand. And he's pulled over and he's going, "Oh, where you going?" I go, "Going to Drummond's to pick up my car." And he goes, "All right, jump in." And we're driving along, and he goes, "Oh, I thought you had a car part in your hand, that's why I pulled over." He goes, "Oh, I'm only just going up the road here. I live at the Lighthouse Keeper's Cottage in Bluff Point." And then he goes, "Oh, hang on, I'll just drop my shopping off and give you a lift to your car." And so we'd gone in, and he said, "Come in and check out the joint." And it's just, oh wow, this amazing, old Lighthouse Keeper's Cottage and stuff. And he's invited us back for dinner that night. Beautiful jewfish and salads and all that.
Just winning you over, like, stay in Geraldton.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was someone definitely pulling some strings up there, being
Yeah.
like, and we're
Yeah.
going to get him this really cool
And
friend.
tonight we're having dew.
I think he had an eye for Jane, because she was a pretty stunning girl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from Melbourne and stuff, and very interesting girl. And
You were just along for the ride.
and this was Mitch Clarkson, his name was,
Yeah.
or Parr, and he was working on the crayfishing boats and stuff, and everyone loved Mitch. And
Yeah.
end up going back to a party that weekend. It was some big party, and meeting all these crayfishing community, all these great, amazing people.
It's just like the right person at the right time that really opened the doors
It
to
was,
a new
yeah.
community, would you say?
Yeah, and we ended up going to the islands within a couple of weeks on, Greg. Oh, what's Greg's? I forgot. Sorry, Greg.
He'll be right.
On Greg's boat.
I know, Greg.
Because it was when the crayfishing season had the seasons for the islands, and they'd go over a couple of weeks before, get the camp all ready, do the servicing and stuff, and we'd just go out fishing and hang out and take photos and that. And
It's just such a cool life.
yeah.
And the opportunity to get to the islands so quickly after arriving in Geraldton is
Oh,
pretty amazing.
Yeah, like there are a lot of us who still haven't been out.
I think it helps to be hanging out with a nice-looking girl.
So you've come to Geraldton and you kind of start to, fit in with the community here. Was there a point where, like, you went, I'm going to stay here? Because I think this is something I've talked about with other people in interviews, and we've also talked about that,
Yeah.
like, when is that point when you go, yeah, this is the place for me?
It was a long time, I reckon. It was a number of years before I felt, I'm happy here now. Because Jane and I, we ended up camping all around different places and stuff, and we ended up staying at the Greenough Caravan Park. We both had a dog each. She had an Alsatian, and as time went on, the dogs were getting territorial with our camp and stuff, so we got moved further and further back in the caravan park. And there was this stage we're thinking, oh, I think we're going to get kicked out. And we saw this house in the paper. It was a farmhouse out at Munyanuka, opposite Speedway. Beautiful old 100-odd-year-old house, and that was $100 a week. And we went and looked at it. Oh yeah, this is pretty good. And the real estate said, oh, if you say you'll take it for a long lease, you'll get it. And then Jane goes, all right, we'll take it for 5 years. I'm like, oh shit.
I was thinking like a 6-month term we could renegotiate.
Yeah.
That's a commitment.
Yeah. 5 years or 2 years, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, oh, don't want to stay here that long, but you can get out of those things if you want to.
Was that your approach? Like, okay, yeah, we'll say just so we can get the house, but I'm not really committed to 5 years.
Yeah, but we had to get jobs and stuff,
Yeah,
so
of
she
course.
could recondition her combi and stuff. And that's how we got to meet some more amazing people in the community. Paul Robb was one from Industry Inland at the time.
I want to ask you about that because we know a bit of the background of how you came to, well, how you know Paul, but why was it weird that you met him here in Geraldton?
Well, I got invited to this party. Jane was working the African Reef, and another guy, Jeremy, her workmate, said come to his place for a party on the Saturday night. So I've rocked up there. She was working and she turned up later, but I've turned up, walked in the gate, walking up the side of the house and thinking, God, I know that face, because he's got quite a unique sort of face.
So that's almost rude. What are you saying about that?
No.
Watch it.
Yeah. Well, he's tall. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, he stands
Getting
out.
yourself out of this one, Jay.
He's tall, he has hair.
Yeah, and we ended up working out that he grew up on the Bellarine Peninsula as well,
Wow.
like 20 k's away from where I did. Was a year above me in school at Tech.
Wow.
Was also in a venturer group, a different one, but we'd meet up once a year or whatever. What do you call them? Jamborees or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we got chatting, and he's invited me along to an Industry Inland meeting, and yeah, I wasn't in the community groups and stuff then, but I thought I'll just go along, check it out, because he told me a little bit about it, how they want to put this heavy industrial estate up at Oakajee right on the coast. And I'd been here for a while and learnt about the crayfishing industry and how valuable it was to this community, because pretty much there was crayfishing and farming that ran the town, economically wise, and just a beautiful coast. And coming from Geelong, an industrial city, I saw what negative things can happen at times with industrial cities, strikes and stuff like that, and incidents, where spillages happen that can spoil a whole other industry sort of thing. That's what I was worried about with the crayfishing industry. And that group was made up of a heap of different people from all over the world. There was doctors and all sorts of things, really interesting people who, everyone knew different things, and that's what helped keep that organisation going a long time, bringing all these economic facts out and stuff like that. It ended up, the thing ended up falling over anyway when Kingstream Steel, ended up undoing itself, and that's when I moved on to the Give Me Geraldton Any Day positive campaign, because the town was down the dumps, and the city brought in this mayor from Wellington, I think, in New Zealand. And they'd been going through similar situations, and they'd done all these events and stuff to make the boost the city. Yeah. And I went home after she spoke one night, got home about 10:30 or something, watching the news, saw running of the bulls in Pamplona in Spain, and oh, hang on, there's a heap of sheep here. Let's do something similar like that. So, ended up bringing this idea up at one of our cafe things we'd done, where you'd meet up and bring ideas up, and everyone's going, oh, yeah, that's great.
Oh. And I just like that.
Wow.
That ended up being a crazy thing, because
You don't say.
the city wanted, the city of Greater Geraldton, bless them, they wanted permission from the RSPCA, which, is fair enough.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go chucking a heap of people in a heap of sheep and scaring the hell out of them and hurting them and stuff. And that's good. And that actually made the event even better than what we planned, because we had to do things differently. So instead of running people with sheep, we ran New Zealanders down the street. It was called running the Kiwis. And I was in the Frio one night and talking. I was waiting for a beer, and this dude in the suits turned around. He said g'day, and he was the manager of Flight Centre. And I got talking to him, and he said, "Yep, we'll sponsor a one-way flight back to New Zealand for the prize for that."
Wow.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so we had about
People got involved? Did people
yeah, oh yeah.
Did they ever?
We had I think there was 11 Kiwis or something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
not
it was
bad
fun. The guy
prize.
that won it, Phil Blakeway, had picked up hitchhiking from Perth. He'd come from New Zealand looking for his missus who had nicked off, and she was rousing in some shearing shed. He's trying to find her, and he's
We are really
So-
unpacking this one.
yeah.
The premise
So
of the TV
Phil's
show.
taken him under his arms to help him out and stuff, and he's ended up winning.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was so
The
amazing.
universe is
And we had other things like
Yeah.
the U-Beauty competition where we teamed up 4 hairdressers and 4 shearers,
Yeah.
and they'd have a sheep each, or 4 sheep, and they'd shear and
my
colour
horse.
them and all that. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And then there was the running of the sheep as well, where we had 100 sheep from Nukara, and we trucked them in, dumped them outside the Freemasons Hotel, which was closed for the day. It was like a 35-degree day. Everyone was tame for a drink, and they closed because they thought there'd be too many people wanting to use the toilets.
That's needed to break.
This is going back to 99, back in old.
So no comment on the current.
So yeah, we had 100 sheep. I had to go around and get sponsorship for these sheep. We got these sheep jackets, and a business would sponsor them, $50. And they could put their logos and all sorts of
This
things
is
on
unreal.
Like, I can't believe we haven't, like, what? Someone written a book about this?
Yeah, so that, and we had about 5,000 people jammed between the
Whoa.
Freemasons and the banks. We had to put ring lock fencing along all the parking poles to keep the sheep in on the road and stuff. And there's like 5-6 people deep all the way along.
Wow.
I feel like this is just unreal, and we are going to, if we don't move on, we're going to keep unpacking this shit
Yeah,
story.
I'm like, right,
Yeah.
again, what about...
But I feel like, was that kind of the point where you were like, all right, running events comes easily and naturally to me? Did it maybe reinforce, or did it kind of spur you along to keep moving in that direction of events, potentially arts, engaging community, to fuse all of those things together?
I'm trying to think now. I think, after doing that, people seek me out, and I got sort of pressured into take on the presidency of the Arts Council, because Kath Wielden had been doing it for well over a decade or so, and she needed to take a step down. Like those things, you usually do a 2-year term and then pass it on to someone.
It takes it out of you, right?
Yeah, it does. It's volunteer, and it cost me a lot of time to run that with Roxanne and the committee and stuff like that. But we had a great time doing those things.
I was going to say, I bet you guys got up to some really cool, crazy things.
Yeah,
Lots
yeah,
of
we packed so much in those 2 years that you wouldn't do in a lifetime sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, bringing artists to town, performance artists, and doing all these crazy things. And some of those artists are still living here that come from over east, and they just loved how cheap it was to live here, the space, and a great creative place to be.
Yeah.
It is such a great...
As you guys have done yourselves.
Yeah.
We talk about this, I think, in every interview.
Definitely.
That somehow Geraldton is this beautiful, creative place. And I think it's like people like you, or like anyone really, find a home here, that you have this origin of being this, like, man of the bush, and, like having a connection to the natural world. And then, okay, that you've just given away that there's no tea in there. He's just ruined the premise,
so
right? That's
sorry.
No.
Virtual tea.
But you had this connection to the land, and you had a connection to community and a connection to events. And when you came to Geraldton, it might have taken you a few years, but you found that here, and that's probably me editorializing, but I think that Geraldton's that kind of place where you can find the things that you value in life, they're all here.
Well, I think, you can agree with me, coming from other places, and I come from the East Coast, thriving communities and stuff, cities and that, you come here and you can just see potential plus here. The size of the city, it's like I grew up in a small town, lived in big cities and stuff, and I just eventually thought, no, this is a great place. We've got amazing hinterland rural areas out east of here and north and stuff. Beautiful coastline and ocean. You go in the ocean now, it's like 20 degrees, the water. It's just amazing.
Very good.
Yeah, and who wants to live in a city? Even if it's a smaller city like Perth or whatever, you still got to travel through traffic. I used to do that in Melbourne. It'd take me 45 minutes to drive to school. On the way home, out of peak hour, it'd be like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Start.
And here, 10, 15 minutes anywhere sort of thing, easily.
Easy.
Yeah. And
it's a place of potential, isn't it? I think both of us picked up on that, that it's like, that what you were talking about is that this place is like, it's really rich with its potential. And I think maybe that's how we get on to the last bit of the talk about Nukara and, how that came about, how it started and, how you sort of brought together this event with a team of people over so many years. How did it, how did you see that potential, go from seeing the potential to having this beautiful event? Yeah,
well, that's what I started out. Like I met Phil Blakeway through the running of the sheep. He had the sheep. Someone introduced me,
We're back to the
and
sheep.
yeah,
I thought we were moving forward, but it depends. We're moving back.
Yeah, and because there's a whole group of us that all knew each other, and we used to go out there for parties for years. At the Nansen pub. That was when there was none of the infrastructure it's there now. There was just a little hut made out of tin and bark and stuff under these beautiful gum trees, a few big stone fireplaces, no bridges or anything. You'd have to go through the mud in the creek, You'd sit there with your beers and, are they going to get through? But yeah, we had, and I'd been booking bands and promoting bands, travelling bands to come to Geraldton and stuff, pretty much after the AC/DC days. And for quite a while, and someone said around the fire, "Oh, James, why don't you get some bands out here?" And I go, "Well, yeah, if we got a stage." And Phil said, "Yeah, I'll build a stage," and which he did, and we done our first little event in 2004, Dave Mann Collective and a couple of local acts, and it was just amazingly well supported, and we just slowly, went along there, and now he's got 2 stages out there, and hang on, how many years now is it? 14 years.
Well, you should know.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Enough years that you can't remember how many there are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But next year will be the 15th and final, hey?
Yeah, next year's 15th and final, yeah.
And I mean, it's just such a huge feat, but do you reflect back and just think, wow, do you have any thoughts of like, that was really great, or I really learned a lot about this? Like, what do you reflect on when you think about where you started and how far collectively that festival and our community has come?
Jeez, good question.
In 1 minute.
Yeah, just to not go back to the sheep either.
I think the rule is, if you do anything, start off smallish like we did, then just perfect as you go and look back on it and debrief with each other and stuff, and that's how we eventually grew that festival, as well as their wedding and function business, which went along side by side with that sort of thing. Yeah, and just great people to work with, and the volunteers, they've been there from the start, all those 14, 15 years, and just bringing community together, that's been the most amazing thing, seeing all those people, happy people out there, just loving it, and you're getting all this feedback from everywhere.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think even speaking as an artist who has played, the opportunity, like to have an opportunity and be able to stay local, to know that we can work towards something is so special and unique. And I think that's something to be really proud of too, is, you know, the opportunity that artists get as well to hook in with the festival, and that people over the years, everyone who's had that chance to play on a stage, to play in a festival setting, for some of us, it's our first opportunity to really get a taste for that.
It's most of the artists are visiting touring acts, you know, some international acts and that, but that's why I like to bring them here, is so other musicians like yourself and that can learn by seeing them. You don't get those opportunities too often.
Yeah, that's right.
And also, to put on a couple of, or quite a few local acts, you know, on the Sunday morning and on the Saturday night, you get to mix with those other crew, and you find they're just humans, those you know, famous artists and stuff, and you learn from them, and they,
I think it's a great part of, you know, to bring it sort of back to the Geraldton. You know, that Geraldton is this kind of place where you can, you know, start running a festival and just start small and perfect. And I first moved to town when all the cafes down at the West End were starting to open. And I remember, you know, a few times you'd go to places and maybe the coffee wasn't as good as it would be if they'd been running for ages. But people were so, like, not forgiving, but so, you know, invested in building the businesses and the community around them and saying, well, I know they're going to get better. And now they all have, and that kind of festival and the artists locally, you know, there's this great kind of like community. We're all invested in making our community better. And like Lex said, you know, you've been a great part of that, even though Nukara is technically not in the city of Greater Geraldton. But, you know, that for so many people in this region, this has been something that we haven't had, you know, for in its iteration in this time. It's unique, and it's
definitely
Thank you is what I'm saying on behalf of
the whole region.
Thanks. And that was inspired from earlier times. You know, when I went to one of the first Meredith music festivals, it was a tiny little festival out in the bush. Everyone just camped around the outside, and it was very similar to that Nukara environment, the way that was. And I just, when they asked that, I thought, I just flashed back to Meredith. Oh, what a great time I had there.
Yeah.
That's what Geraldton needs, you know, because there wasn't much going. There was the Red Hill concerts going on, sort of thing. But this was just a little bit different.
Yeah, different kind of music.
Yeah.
It's so great to have that. And I guess it just as we close our segment, I mean, can we ask what is next? Have you got anything on the cards?
Good question. I've been really enjoying this lockdown sort of time.
You and everyone.
Yeah, let's not lie. We've all loved it.
You know, it's just, and actually I've been busy as ever anyway with work. But no big plans or anything. I'm just going to ride the wave for a little bit longer. And
I think if your life so far has been anything to go by, there'll be something cool and interesting that we'll see in a couple of years, or, you know, so we'll have to keep an eye out, I think. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I've got to an age now where I like smaller, intimate things, like doing the backyard concerts and little smaller gigs and stuff.
So back to the kennels party is what you're saying.
We're going to cram 500 into the backyard.
Just friends sort of thing. Get friends together.
James and 500 of his closest friends.
Less responsibility sort of thing.
Pretty much the Nukara guest list, but like centre James's backyard.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, girls.
It has been a pleasure to really unpack your story and get to know you behind all of your feats and your musical events, and also just like the ton of other things that you bring to our town. And with that, I think this is a really nice way to close our segment for QPTEA Time this week. Thank you so much, guys. We have loved chatting to you. I'm Lex, and this is Rosie, and this is James. And we've loved talking to you. We hope that you enjoyed this chat with James Thompson.